Just after midnight in Waterbury, Connecticut, a heavy-set man in pajamas opens his door to 4 detectives. They ask him to get dressed. He goes upstairs and comes back down in a double-breasted suit, buttoned. A psychiatrist who had never met him wrote that suit down on paper weeks before. For 16 years this man planted bombs in Grand Central, Radio City, Penn Station and the subway. 33 devices, 22 of them detonated, and not one usable fingerprint in 16 years of trying. He beat the biggest manhunt New York had ever run. Then he sat down and explained himself. This is how a man's need to be understood did what thousands of detectives couldn't. It starts on a windowsill on West 64th Street in Manhattan, in November of 1940. A workman finds a wooden toolbox sitting outside a consolidated Edison building. Inside is a short brass pipe. Wrapped around it, a note in careful block capitals, Con Edison crooks, this is for you. The pipe never fired. Investigators later suspected that wasn't a mistake at all. If it had exploded, the note would have burned with it. He wanted the note read. Nobody read much into it. New York in 1940 had bigger things on its desk. 10 months later, a second unexploded pipe turns up on a street near Con Edison's headquarters. Then comes Pearl Harbor, and a letter lands at police headquarters written in those same square capitals. He'll build no more bomb units for the duration of the war. His patriotic feelings, he says. Later he'll bring Con Edison to justice. They will pay for their dastardly deeds. He signs it with 2 initials, FP. For the next 10 years that's all anyone has. And he keeps the promise. Through the whole war, through the victory parades, through Korea, nothing. Only postcards, arriving now and then, same handwriting, same grievance, same 2 letters at the bottom. Then, in March 1951, 10 years of quiet end inside Grand Central Terminal. A pipe bomb goes off in a sand-filled ashtray. Loud, ugly, and nobody is hurt. That's the strange part. For years, the empty corners and the odd hours looked chosen. He's back, and he's better. Brass pipe, flashlight batteries, and a cheap pocket watch for a timer. He carries them into the city inside his coat, and he is never in a hurry. Radio City Music Hall. The Paramount. The Public Library. Penn Station. The Port Authority Bus Terminal. In a theater, he slits the underside of a seat cushion with a knife, slides the pipe in. Then he watches part of the picture, stands up, and walks out with everybody else. He mails his letters from White Plains, up in Westchester. Never from the city, never from home. Everything is hand-printed in those square capitals, so there's no typewriter in the world to trace. He never phones anyone. He never brags. There's no partner to get nervous and talk. By the mid-50s, the bombs come faster. In 1955 alone, he plants more than 20. And here's the turn. For most of those years, the city barely acknowledges he exists. The newspapers agree to keep it quiet. Editors fear copycats, and the police prefer it that way. So the man setting bombs in the busiest rooms in America gets almost no attention at all. You've sent the follow-up email. Nobody answered. Now stretch that exact feeling across 16 years. December 2, 1956. Radio City Music Hall, a Sunday evening crowd, the picture already running. The bomb in seat 4E goes off underneath the woman sitting in it. 6 people are injured. 3 of them badly. Much of the audience assumes the bang came from the film, and stays put. That's the night the silence breaks. By morning he's on every front page in New York. The police commissioner orders what he calls the greatest manhunt in the department's history. Detectives work the fragments, the brass, the batteries, the watch springs, the lint inside the bags. They interview mental patients, fired employees, known cranks. They chase tip after tip after tip. Copycats pour in, phoned threats and fake letters, and every hoax burns hours they don't have. And they get nowhere, because there's nowhere to get. He touches nothing, he tells nobody. Think about what kind of suspect that's. No accomplice, no bar he drinks at, no girlfriend. Police work runs on people talking. He had quietly removed every person from the equation. So a captain does something the department has essentially never done. He asks a psychiatrist for help. Dr. James Brussel is handed the whole file, the letters, the photographs, the 16-year timeline. He reads it the way a physician reads a chart. Symptoms first. Diagnosis after. The grudge hasn't softened in 16 years, it's frozen. Frozen anger has a shape he recognizes. The phrasing is stiff and old-fashioned, dastardly deeds, the English of someone raised in another language. The lettering is obsessive. Every capital squared off, nothing hurried, nothing crossed out, nothing careless. So Brussel writes it down, a man around 50, heavy-set, unmarried, foreign-born, likely Eastern European. Catholic. Skilled with tools. Living in a city near New York rather than in it. living with an older female relative who looks after him and never asks about the workshop. And then he adds the line everybody remembers, almost as a throwaway at the end. When you find him, he'll be wearing a double-breasted suit. And it'll be buttoned. It isn't magic. It's the same tidiness that squares off every letter applied to a jacket. A man who won't leave a comma crooked isn't going to leave his coat hanging open. If reading a person out of the marks they leave is your thing, that's exactly what this channel does. Stick around. Brussel gives one more piece of advice, and that's the one that actually cracks the case. Publish the profile, he says. Publish all of it. He wants an argument. Give him one. On December 26th, the New York Journal-American runs an open letter to him on page 1. It asks him to surrender, and it promises to print his grievances in full, unedited. Every instinct that kept him free for 16 years says, fold the paper and walk away. 16 years of perfect discipline, and he answers within days, in his own hand-printed capitals. The first reply refuses to surrender. But he's furious, and he starts listing what they did. The paper prints it, then asks the obvious follow-up. What exactly did Con Edison do to you? That's the crack. Not fear, not money, not fatigue. Somebody finally asked him for his side. And he can't answer in general terms. It's the itch you get when someone retells your story wrong. You don't correct the mood of it. You correct the details, because the details are the proof. So he writes that he was injured on the job, at a Con Edison generating plant. That the company denied him. That he was left permanently disabled and never paid a dime. And then, to make the record exact, he writes the date. September 5, 1931. 16 years of untraceable paper, and he'd just handed them a coordinate inside a filing cabinet. Because a date, plus a company, plus an injury isn't a mystery anymore. It's a folder. One problem. Con Edison had told police the old personnel records from the 30s were gone. Mergers, purges, moves. Whatever survived sat uncatalogued in cabinets. Nobody had opened in a decade. A clerk named Alice Kelly gets put on those files anyway, told to look for grievances. She isn't a detective. She's reading employee folders one at a time, at a desk, for days. She's hunting for words, not names. Injustice, permanent disability. Any man who wrote in that key. And she finds one. George Medesky, of Waterbury, Connecticut, hurt at the Hellgate plant. A boiler backfired, knocked him down, and filled his lungs with hot gas. September 1931. His compensation claim was thrown out for being filed too late. His appeals failed. Then nothing. Then she reads the letters he wrote the company afterward, and she stops reading. Same complaints, same rhythm, same stiff formal phrases she'd been seeing in the newspaper all week. Word for word, the man in the headlines and the man in the folder are one person. Detectives drive up to Waterbury on January 21, 1957, and knock just after midnight. He lives in a wooden house with 2 unmarried older sisters. Out back, a garage workshop. He admits it almost at once, politely, as though he's been waiting to be asked properly. A detective asks what FP stands for. He answers without hesitating, fair play. Then he goes upstairs to dress, and comes back down in the buttoned double-breasted suit. 33 bombs. 15 people injured. Nobody killed, and he always insisted he never intended to kill. He was ruled unfit to stand trial, and sent to a hospital for the criminally insane. He was released in 1973, went home to that same house in Waterbury, and died at 90. 16 years hidden, then 16 years committed. He never did get the hearing he wanted. Here's the part worth keeping. Every skill this man had went into never being found. The one thing he couldn't give up, being understood exactly once, in detail, is what found him. If you want the case where that same profiling method got it badly wrong, subscribe. These stories shouldn't be forgotten. Alice Kelly went back to her desk and her files. Thanks for watching.